Hey, what's good, guys? Today we are going to be talking about another very interesting ex-vegan story. Now, this one comes from the ex-planteater, who's someone I've actually talked about briefly in a video on my main channel a long time ago now, quite a while ago. But this time, we're going to be sharing her full story from vegan to carnivore. Now in this video, she doesn't talk about going on the carnivore diet explicitly, at least I don't think she does. She talks about in her recent update, which was just a couple months ago, which we'll obviously talk about the update too at some point. But she makes it very clear that she became vegan at 13, was vegan for about 14 years, and was experiencing a lot of health complications. Now she did have an underlying health issue, which is something important to talk about. She has ulcerative colitis, which is an inflammatory bowel disease, which can give you a wide range of digestive issues, including making it very difficult for you to actually digest plant matter. So vegetables and fruits and all of that is actually quite difficult for her body. And because of this underlying issue, on top of her other deficiencies, her health was not doing too good. Lost a lot of weight, her skin looked horrible, broke out in acne all over the place. And she also damn near died, was hospitalized multiple times, and each time, you know, doctors and people around her were like, hey, maybe it's the veganism, maybe start eating some animals again, maybe that'll help you out, which is precisely what she ended up doing. After 14 years, she caved, and well, it saved her life. Now, I'm gonna have to chime in quite a bit throughout this video. I mostly want to show you guys the video and talk about it with you all together, but I will have to chime in occasionally because I can't just, you know, upload somebody's 25-minute video without adding to it, and that's not exactly what we would call fair use, so I will be sprinkling in my thoughts throughout. Anyway, let's get into it. Also, just letting you know, I have to mute it every time she says eating order because YouTube will literally age restrict my video if I don't. I guarantee you that it's happened before.
My health has done like a complete 180 in the past couple of months, and things have improved that I never even thought could improve. Mental clarity and focus was one of my biggest things that I had an issue with when I was vegan, and now it's like so effortless. Hey guys, and welcome to my new YouTube channel. I'm Josie, the ex-planteater, and as my name suggests, I was vegan for 14 years and stopped last June. I also am a science fiction author, and I make videos on TikTok and YouTube about Long Island's Gold Coast, paranormal subjects, and some conspiracy topics, the more science fiction-esque ones that are just interesting to talk about and learn about. So yeah, that's just what I normally do. This is something that kind of fell into my lap accidentally since I decided to stop being vegan last June, and this video is going to just be an account of why I stopped being vegan, what kind of led me to an animal-based diet that has led me to the best health I've experienced in my entire life, and it's still pretty early on for me, so I'm really looking forward to the health benefits that I will experience in years to come, and I will go over exactly what I eat now. I don't want this video to be super long, but I want it to be thorough, so I'm just gonna do my best, and I'm just gonna talk. So I became vegan when I was 13 years old. It was kind of a conglomeration of things that led to it. I had very bad body image issues around that time because I was chubby as a kid and I was made fun of. So I had a little bit of an eating disorder, and I don't know, I don't want to downplay it, but I know some people really suffer very badly with eating disorders, and I luckily only had, I would say, anorexia for 6 months. It did really pretty badly affect me, like my heart rate got really low, but I wasn't vegan at the time, I was just anorexic. But obviously that mindset and that mental health aspect of it had set in, and coming out of the really bad part of that episode of my life, I was looking for something that would kind of take away some of my anxiety about food. And I was also looking for a diet that I genuinely thought wouldn't cause things like heart disease and cancer in the future, because I genuinely was also becoming more interested in health, and I wanted to avoid diseases like that because a lot of the adults in my life were not very healthy. They did not eat healthy. A lot of them were overweight and just kind of thought it was normal, and I didn't want that for myself. So I was looking for alternatives, and I've always loved animals, so when veganism was first presented to me, I think at Warped Tour, I think my first introduction to veganism was the pita tent at Warped Tour. I was sold. I became vegan, I want to say basically cold turkey. I really think it was that simple for me because I was convinced that it was the healthiest. I was convinced that it would keep me thin without really having to worry about it, even though I did always worry about it anyway, because it was just, again, like a mental thing. And I had body dysmorphia.
So this isn't really for her, obviously, because, eating plants and stuff is not really a great option for her. The best thing, which we'll get to later in more detail, for her, it obviously is a animal-based diet. It just makes the most sense for how her body is set up, which I've explained 100 billion times, that everybody's body is different. Everybody has different underlying conditions or sensibilities to certain things, or, there's a whole plethora, a range of different things that changes how somebody's body reacts to certain types of foods. For her, eating an animal-based diet makes the most sense, and obviously she should choose the healthiest version of that, of course, which we'll get into later. But this is for anybody else who is also thinking along the same lines of, I want to be healthy, I want to keep my weight in check, I don't want to have heart disease, stuff like that. Well, the Mediterranean diet is recognized across the world as arguably the best diet for that route, even the pescatarian as well. The point is, though, it's all about eating healthy, whole foods, cutting out processed garbage, sugars, and all that stuff. And I know the carnivore people in here are gonna cry about it when I say this, but keeping your red meat consumption to a minimum. Some people will sit here and deny science all day and say that LDL isn't bad for you, that it doesn't clog arteries, that it doesn't produce the plaque that clogs your arteries. All this well-documented research that says it does. There's some science deniers, a lot of them plenty, that will say no it doesn't because I've been carnivore for 17 minutes and I'm perfectly fine, I don't have clogged arteries, it's clearly a bunch of fake fabricated bullshit, when in reality this sort of thing can take decades to affect you, and you may not even see warning signs until it has already happened. And the carnivore diet is a fairly new fad, and the research that all these people cite comes from influencers like Sean Baker, who's literally an orthopedic surgeon, which obviously has nothing to do with diet and nutrition, and has been carnivore for 9 years, which isn't even a single decade, when cardiovascular risks literally take multiple decades for most people to even show up. Well, this video isn't about debunking all of that stuff. It's about her transformation from vegan to carnivore and how it actually is a benefit and a life-saving change for her. And obviously we need to condemn PETA and their bullshit for indoctrinating children. That it's seriously, children are the most susceptible to this bullshit because they don't know any better. And like, oh, well, just like her, like, well, I want to help animals, I want to save animals, so of course I'll stop eating them. And then they end up with these life-threatening health complications.
But again, I thought it would keep me effortlessly lean, even though I would always worry about it anyway. But I thought it was the healthiest, yada yada. I was sold. Became vegan like overnight. So suddenly my diet was pretty carb heavy. I was introducing all these faux meat products that I don't know, God knows what, did to my body. And I continued with that for 14 years of my life, from about the time that I was 13 to 27. And no, I did not feel good for most of those years, if at all. But the really bad health side effects started, I would say, at about year 11. So I avoided the really bad ones for a long time, but I got ulcerative colitis in, I want to say 2017, and that was probably about the 10th or 11th year that I was vegan. I started having really bad pain after I would eat. I would have a low fever almost every day. I would get diarrhea after I would eat just about anything. And then the worst thing was having blood in my stool, which if you're familiar with colitis, then you know that that's like the biggest part of it, is that you go to the bathroom and there's a ton of blood in the toilet. Sorry to be frank and, graphic, but that's obviously not good. And if that starts happening to you, you're probably going to be very concerned, which I was. But having, the vegan mindset, I thought it would get better on its own. I thought my diet would heal my colitis. And I started looking around for all these herbs that would reduce inflammation and, heal my damaged tissue in my colon. Nothing ever worked. I remember there was this one supplement that was called it was something with a B, but I cannot remember it. It kind of did help a little bit, I'm kind of glad I don't remember the name of it, because I don't want to give anybody that advice to go take that if they have this condition, because I don't think in the long run that it'll actually help. But essentially, in 2017, I was hospitalized twice because of my colitis. The doctors tried to put me on all this medication for ulcerative colitis, and I refused to take it, thank God. I'm not saying that if you have colitis, you shouldn't take medication, but I would have just become dependent on this medication that in the end I wouldn't have needed, because I am now, like presently, I would say almost fully healed from my colitis. I haven't really had symptoms since I stopped being vegan. The only thing I have really still had every once in a while, which I think is also an effect of going into ketosis, is diarrhea, but nothing else. My digestion actually is better than it's been in like a decade, I would say, honestly, because I always had like mild to severe digestive issues as a vegan.
I think she's actually really, really smart for deciding not to just put a band-aid on it. Oh, I'll just take the medication for it, when there was an actual natural solution to it. Eat meat. Like that was really smart. And I feel like, you know, there's a good amount of ex-vegans, right? You know, a lot of the topics I talk about are ex-vegan stories. And so there's a decent amount of people that are like, you know what, my health not looking too good, I'm just gonna reintroduce animal products and I'll be fine. And they do that and they are fine. But then there are a handful of vegans that are like, I'm bleeding out my asshole, I have no energy, feel like shit all the time, my skin's peeling off, and I'm going blind. But I went to the doctor and he just, you know, was just spouting this bullshit, you know, this biased garbage that, you know, veganism might be the problem. Like, so I've gone to Reddit now and I'm sharing my story. Well, what did you guys do? What would you do in this situation? How did you fix this? You know, there's literally vegans like that will do anything but change their diet for their own health and well-being. And it's true. That's something that we talk about here. If you haven't seen that, you know, go watch some of my previous videos. I'm sure some of those topics will pop up and you'll see it. But that is just bizarre to me. But she was smart. She said, no, screw that. My health comes first. I'm gonna do what I need to do. And she reintroduced animal products and found out that it suppressed the ulcerative colitis. She cured herself by just changing her damn diet. Now that's something that people on the carnivore diet also swear by, that it helps with a lot of autoimmune disease, which I imagine is quite true. Because most people that are experiencing health complications on a vegan diet is because of certain nutrient deficiencies, and there's plenty of them that are immune related, like vitamin D, for instance, that a lot of vegans are lacking, and it's extremely bioavailable in meat. It's same with even iron. Iron also affects your health and immune and all of that stuff. So it makes sense that people going from vegan to carnivore are going to see those type of health benefits.
Yeah. So everything kind of came to a breaking point, I guess I could say. Last May, I had a very bad death in the family of somebody very close to me, and so I'm not getting choked up. I could talk about it. But when that happened, my colitis came back, and I had kind of had my symptoms as under control as I could have them at the time. They were never perfect. Like, my digestion was never back to normal because, again, I was vegan. But they were pretty in check for about a year, I would say, maybe a year and a half. But when this death happened, my colitis like came back in full force, and I could see it getting worse, and I didn't want to end up in the hospital again, obviously, because of everything going on in the world right now, and just, you know, who wants to go to the hospital? So I was looking for something else. I was looking for a concrete answer. I knew deep down, personally for me, I'm not trying to say this to anybody else who has colitis, I'm only talking about myself, but I knew deep down that I never had these digestive issues as a kid. And I knew there was an answer out there for me that would heal me. And I didn't stop until I found it. So I was reading a book, and the author was sympathetic with vegans and vegetarians. He had been vegan, I believe, for a number of years, or at least vegetarian for a number of years, and had stopped because in the book he was talking about how collagen and cholesterol, the lack of them can be very negative for your brain and your tissues. He went over all that stuff briefly. It was a very small section in this book, so it was almost like a coincidental thing that it happened to be in there. I think I read it at the exact right time, like just as I was starting to question if my diet was really working for me. So I read it at the right time. And that kind of made the light bulb go off a little bit and made me consider the scariest thing that I could possibly consider at the time, because I genuinely thought I would be vegan for my whole life. I remember making angry Facebook posts when I first was diagnosed with colitis, like telling people off because they were accusing me of getting colitis for being vegan, which they were kind of right. But at the time it just pissed me off. But yeah, I thought I was going to be vegan forever. So it was very scary for me to initially make that decision to stop and have just bone broth again. That's it, just bone broth. I didn't, go from being vegan to eating a steak. I eat steak now, but I didn't do that. So I decided to have bone broth again, and I just figured if nothing happens or if it affects my digestive system negatively, then I know it was the wrong thing to do. Then I know veganism really is supposed to work in some way for me. It's gonna work the best, I guess, and I've just been dealt this hand in life. That was my thinking, is that I would just settle on that if having bone broth didn't work. Luckily it did. I remember it, I can't remember specifically what happened when I first had it again, but it positively influenced my digestive system enough that I decided to have fish and eggs again. And again, I went into it with that same mentality of, if this is not gonna work, then I'll eat it and I'll get sick. Then I'll eat it and I will have stomach pain again and get colitis. The opposite happened. I was so shocked when I had salmon again. My first, I guess, the closest thing to meat that I had again after I had stopped being vegan for over a decade was salmon. And I was genuinely afraid that when I had that salmon, I was gonna get sick. Nothing happened. When I had eggs again too, nothing happened. My body processed it as if I'd never stopped eating these things. So it also calls into question for me the assertion by people that I know that are vegan and people on the internet that are vegan that say oh, there was a piece of steak in my vegan burger or whatever, my vegan dish that I got at a restaurant, and I got so sick. Really? Is it in your head? Maybe, just maybe. So it didn't affect me negatively at all. And with those positive health benefits that I was seeing, my digestive system started healing. I started to not have any blood anymore when I would go to the bathroom, without getting into too graphic of detail. That was the biggest indicator for me that my digestive system was healing, that my colon was healing.
So obviously hearing about the healing is a wonderful thing. It's the best part of the video, right? The recovery from the veganism. And she does bring up something really interesting. The vegans are like, well, I can't go back to eating meat. It makes me feel sick. Now, I was vegetarian for a long time. And so I didn't eat meat for a while. Obviously I still ate eggs and stuff, so I wasn't completely compromised, so I can't really relate to that level. But I know I never felt sick when I ate meat. I mean, there was this mental thing that kind of made me feel mentally sick, so maybe that's what a lot of people are feeling. I don't know, there could be an actual physical thing with it. But I know I didn't want to eat red meat, for instance. I was not gonna eat steak. I still don't really eat red meat at all. But there was a time where I ordered some chicken tacos from a restaurant and they gave me steak, and I was like, fuck, I was like, damn it, because I don't want to bring it back, since that's a waste of the food, that's a waste of the animal that died, right, to return it. So of course I'm I have to eat it. This has happened some things like this have happened a couple times actually, and so I stomached it. I ate it. I felt really weird and gross, and I was like, ugh, it just didn't feel right. It just felt really uncomfortable, but I was able to eat it for the most part. There was also a time where I was trying to deliver an order or something like that had some steak burgers or something, and I was doing Uber, and the person canceled the order after I already had it, which was weird. But it was steak burgers and stuff. I was like, well, I'm not gonna eat this, so I literally drove it all the way to a friend's house so that they could eat it. I was like, I'm not gonna throw it out, I'm not gonna waste it. But I didn't want to eat it because it just didn't feel right to me. Still doesn't. So I get that. To me it's a mental thing for sure, but whether or not it's a physical thing, I don't know. I do think that your gut biome could possibly get weaker as far as eating meat goes, because if you haven't done it for a long time, I just don't know the extent of it, and it probably depends on everybody's individual body or individual systems. And something I wanted to mention briefly when she brought up PETA and the people that are involved in like the veganism movement is they are not transparent at all. They don't tell you about this kind of stuff. They don't tell you about these types of complications. They don't even tell you like about supplementing properly. And even then, not everybody can supplement properly, because just because you have the supplements and nutrients in your body does not mean that your body is using it, even most of it. Some people, you might take in, exactly the amount of supplements that you need, but you're only using, what, 30% of it, absorbing 30% of it, so you're actually 70% deficient, and that sort of thing is difficult to detect. Even a doctor is gonna have a hard time pinning that down exactly. Like, well, it seems like you're iron deficient, even though your blood shows that you have enough iron, but the truth is, the chances of you actually using all of that iron is pretty damn low, so that's probably why you're deficient, but it's difficult to pinpoint exactly. And you can even overdose on certain supplements like iron. You can take too much. So if you overcompensate, that can cause health issues. And so yeah, you literally need to have a professional nutritionist and a dietitian in your corner to be healthy on a vegan diet for a lot of people, which is just not practicable at all. They don't tell you this sort of shit. They just tell you, and people like Josie here, that veganism is the healthiest thing. It reduces heart risk and cancers, and it's the best for everybody's well-being, no matter who you are, what your system chemistry is, nothing, no, your underlying health problems, if you're diabetic, whatever, doesn't matter. Veganism is the way, veganism healthy, veganism for all. And the truth is, they're fucking lying.
I knew that I was doing something right. So obviously my logic was, well, let me include chicken and turkey again. So I did that a few months later. Let me include beef and lamb and other, like ruminant meats like that again. And that was again, probably like a 2 months of time in between introducing chicken and turkey again and having beef again. So it's not like I just went gung-ho and had a bunch of animal products again to be like right away. I really tried to space it out to see how each thing would affect me, and I had nothing but positive benefits. And essentially, as all these positive things kept happening, I naturally started looking into it more myself. So I found physicians like Ken Berry. One of the biggest eye-openers, which I would imagine he's like a controversial figure kind of in this community, if you could call it that. But I found, I'm gonna butcher his name, but Sverige or Sferia, again, I'm gonna butcher it. Sverige and Godis, those are his two channels. I found his Vegan's the Epitome of Malnourishment videos, and that was probably the biggest eye-opener for me, that I was doing the right thing. And I was just so disturbed, especially the comparisons. If you haven't watched these videos, you should definitely go check them out. I'll link like one of them in the description. But he'll show a person right at the beginning of their journey with veganism, and then a few years later, and just the aging that they go through, the premature aging, and like the mental deterioration that happens to them is so shocking and so disturbing. So obviously I saw that, things like that as well, and I did not want any part of it. And that was all of those things convinced me that I was doing the right thing. So something else though, obviously as these positive things kept happening, I was including more animal products, but something that I was not considering necessarily was the carnivore diet. And I only call it that because it's a very convenient way of categorizing the way I eat now. I actually really would prefer to not categorize my diet as anything. I just eat what I know is good for me at this point. And side note, I do not eat gluten. I do not eat soy. And there's one more, and I don't eat vegetable oils, again, because I think all of those things were causing a ton of inflammation for me in retrospect, and I just feel so much better not eating them. So just side note, I don't eat those things. It's not like I want to not categorize my diet or label it as something because I eat a little bit of everything. I do not. I don't include things that I know 100% are not good for my health. So just needed to clarify that. So as I was saying, I didn't necessarily consider a carnivore diet. I thought it was a little weird and extreme, And now I've just kind of done a complete 180 on that in terms of the way I'm thinking about it. So as of recently, I've cut out almost all carbs. The only carbs I really eat are in organic dairy. I eat raw dairy over organic dairy whenever I can, but I just don't have a very reliable source of getting it. And right now it hasn't been affecting me negatively. So I eat organic dairy, and there are some carbs in that, so I eat carbs from that. I eat a very small amount of fruit. I love grapefruit. And then it's really been citrus fruits, honestly, lately. And then I do eat olives every once in a while. I eat avocados. I'd probably eat cucumber again if, I wanted to. Fruit, I will eat. Vegetables, I've completely cut out, and I've cut out vegetable oils completely. And, I also know in the future, eventually I'm going to go out to eat with people, and I'm probably going to end up consuming them in a small amount. I'm not really worried about that. I prefer not to, but again, it's not going to be a huge deal. Personally, in my own life, when I'm cooking for myself, I do not use vegetable oils. I refuse, and I will try to minimize them as much throughout my life as I possibly can. And I certainly won't be buying anything with them in it anymore. Other than that, I eat basically any type of eggs, meat, and fish. I prefer organic and grass-fed, pasture-raised, as long as I can get it. I obviously have to also be, conscious of my budget. I like splurge a little bit sometimes on like really high quality meats, but again, like I'm not with an endless budget, so it's still within reason.
Premature aging, huh? Wonder where I've seen that. I don't know. Anyway, I think her choice of what she eats is brilliant for her, because even though she is mostly animal-based, right? That's what's best for her body. She's still getting the few things that you're lacking on an animal-based diet from eating a couple of fruits, from eating a couple of vegetables or whatever occasionally. She still mixes them in, to the best of her ability, which is brilliant. Not everybody can even do that, but I just feel like going on to an extremely restrictive diet, if you don't need to, like if your body doesn't require it because of some sort of health condition or whatever, is silly. Like, it just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense if you don't have to. Especially since no matter what, if you're on a very restrictive diet, you are going to be deficient in something. Now, the carnivore diet, there's this vitamin C, magnesium, fiber especially, and I don't know why a lot of people that eat carnivore think that fiber isn't important when it definitely is. It is extremely important for your digestive health. Now, I will say one thing, granted, digesting meat is typically quite a bit easier than digesting plants, so fiber isn't as important for digesting meat as it is for digesting plant. And if you're on the carnivore diet, you're not eating plants anyway. But fiber helps you not be constipated, lowers cholesterol, and even blood sugar levels, while also contributing to the reduction of certain types of cancers and heart disease. And don't even get me started on what kind of harm constipation can cause. But did you know they can actually lead to your appendix bursting? It's not like a direct cause of it, but it is something that can very much directly contribute to your appendix bursting, which is something that happens to people and they wonder why when they've been constipated like their whole lives. Point is, though, I stand by it being important to incorporate as many different types of healthy whole foods as you can and eat a balanced diet that includes all of what your body needs. And I think that is the true way to being healthy. Again, with a lot of people on the carnivore and vegan diet, they all cut out the same things. Well, the vegans maybe not so much, just depends on which vegans. Certain vegans do this, but not all. But when you have like a Venn diagram, right? There's an overlap in the middle between vegan and carnivore, and usually that overlap is processed garbage. Now, like I said, some vegans don't cut out the processed garbage. In fact, they end up eating more of it, and those are usually the ones that end up feeling really terrible really fast, because there's like, well, I'm not eating meat, but I'm eating Oreos, I'm eating lots of soy, a lot of processed burgers with tons of sodium. Like, yeah, you're gonna feel like death in a couple of weeks. Trust me, eating like that. But the thing is with the carnivores, they usually cut out all that garbage, like all of it. And so yeah, overall, short term for certain, carnivore is definitely going to be healthier for a lot of people than a vegan diet short term, depending on how they do it, obviously.
So just to close this video, I realized I didn't really talk about what exactly changed throughout these past couple of months or since last June, and especially since I started including things like beef tallow, beef, anything in that realm. Those have made a huge difference in my health, my energy levels, my skin. So I'll just go over briefly the changes that I experienced from when I was vegan to now. First of all, my colitis, that was the biggest change that I experienced. I went from having really bad digestive issues when my colitis wasn't flaring up. I had really bad, just irritable bowel syndrome or whatever, IBS. That has completely went away. I don't get any pain after I eat anymore. I don't really even have gas anymore with the way I've been eating. It's just been a complete 180. And the biggest thing that I still have experienced is diarrhea, but even that has been getting significantly better. So there's that. When I was vegan, I was also lethargic all the time. I would eat something and want to go to sleep right after, and that was almost every meal. Especially like breakfast was always the worst because I would get up for the day, eat my first meal, and want to go back to bed. Like, who wants to feel that way? So I always felt lethargic. Now, like today, I had an omelet with cheese and bacon for breakfast. I felt focused, I felt energized, I felt motivated to get everything done that I needed to do for the day after I ate that. So again, I would definitely say it's not just the animal products that are giving me this energy, but also the things that I'm not eating. So I'm not eating gluten, I'm not eating carbs, really, unless, you know, a few grams of carbs happen to be in the dairy that I eat. But I'm not eating that other stuff that also I feel like weighs you down and affects your digestive system negatively. So energy levels improved. My PMS, towards the end of veganism, I was getting such horrible cramps. I would be like almost bedridden. I would get like these stabbing, horrible pains whenever I would get my period. So, and I know some vegans have the issue of that they become, I think it's called amenorrhea. I'm not pronouncing that right. I know I'm not, but they stop having periods. That luckily wasn't happening to me. It had happened for small amounts of time throughout me being vegan, but again, like that wasn't an issue towards the end of my veganism. But my periods now are almost painless. Like, I swear, like I feel like this is a miracle diet when I talk about it, and people probably don't believe me, but again, like, you don't have to. I'm the one experiencing these things, so it really only matters to me at the end of the day. But I don't really get pain anymore when my period starts. I maybe get slight cramps, but I don't really experience PMS anywhere near as much as I did beforehand. I barely get bloated anymore. Like, it's not like a superhuman diet either. Like, I still experience these human things. Like, my skin still breaks out a tiny bit still sometimes, but I still get a little bloated sometimes from eating. I'm not saying that I never do, but that's been another thing that has gotten significantly better. When I was vegan, I always had this like unnaturally distended stomach, especially like my lower, like, you know, my stomach area, my lower stomach, that was always bloated, like unnaturally bloated. It always looked like to me. That's also completely went back to normal, like to the way that my body is ideally supposed to look. Like, I wake up and I have like a flat stomach, and I know some people don't have a flat stomach, but just being a lean person, that's the way I should probably look in the morning. What else? So again, vegans could probably argue that I was just lazy with this one, but this isn't something else that significantly changed. I always would lack the motivation to organize and clean and like get things done that I knew I needed to do. I was like a chronic procrastinator. And all of a sudden, especially since I started having beef tallow, those things that I found, like those tasks that I found to be so daunting, are so effortless to me now. Like, I just do them. I don't even think about it. I just do them and get them done. If I know that there's cleaning that has to get done or organizing, 9 times out of 10, I just do it, unless there's something else that's more important that needs to get done at that moment. I used to put things off, like my apartment. My fiance is very meticulous with cleaning, so it's always been like fairly clean, but there were just certain things that just sat there and really should have been organized and clean and whatnot, but they just didn't, because I wasn't making the effort to do it myself. And now like our apartment is like meticulously organized and clean, like compared to the way it was. So that's also been a very positive benefit that I've experienced, because an organized environment around you and a clean environment reflects like a clean and organized mental state, in my opinion. So that's been another huge change. What else? Another thing I was experiencing was, you probably can't really see it, but my hairline started receding. And again, like this was something I noticed when I was still vegan, like the thinning of this area of my hair, like the crown of my head, I guess. And I just thought it was some normal effect of aging, or I remember looking at it and being like, huh, was my hair always like that? Because it just didn't process in my head that my hair was starting to fall out. So that also, like my hair was already thick to begin with, luckily, so there wasn't like too much damage that I experienced, luckily. But it's, you know, the thickness has gone back to normal. Like my hairline in the front has been filling back in, and I feel like the strands of my hair like feel more, feel like thicker. So there's that. There's probably more stuff that I'm not even thinking about. My health has done like a complete 180 in the past couple of months, and things have improved that I never even thought could improve with my health. Like previously when I was vegan, I thought that these things were just normal to experience during everyday life, and now I know that that's not true, because I feel so much better, and I feel the way that I wish that I strive for my whole duration of being vegan. This was what I wanted. I wanted a diet that I would be, you know, effortlessly energized, not really have to worry about what I eat in terms of like staying lean and fit, and having like mental clarity. Mental clarity and focus was one of my biggest things that I had an issue with when I was vegan, and now it's like so effortless.
So that's really the end of this video. So I'm just gonna, kind of wrap up my thoughts about the whole thing in general. Obviously, she has made some incredible improvements to her health and well-being and everything. And I feel like the lesson to learn from her is to do what is best for your body. That doesn't necessarily mean some kind of fad diet or being fully carnivore. Like, you don't need to identify with something super specific. Like, I keep saying that, my wife and I eat the Mediterranean diet, which we do, but it's not like we saw the Mediterranean diet, we're like, that's it, that's us, It was more like we just ate what felt best for us, what made the most sense, mostly plant-based with meat mixed in. And then even then, we're not 100% sure if, we get all the nutrients and stuff that we need, even though like my blood work, 'cause I'm diabetic, so I have to get blood work every few months, says that, I'm perfectly sufficient in my nutrients and stuff, and I feel fine. I feel good on a daily basis. Sometimes I'm a little bit tired. Like, I feel like I'm a bit more tired than I used to be, and that could have something to do with the fact that I don't eat as much meat. So what did my wife and I start doing? We started taking supplements for things that we felt like we might be lacking, and we decided not to take iron just in case. We don't want to overdose on iron or anything, but we're taking B12, amino acid complex, so these are basically proteins, omega-3, because even though I like fish and stuff, my wife doesn't, and she's actually starting to want to eat some fish stuff, and I like making fish, so in the future we might start doing it. She just feels icky when she eats it. It's just a thing. We tried it. Well, she tried hogfish for the first time when we visited Florida some time ago, and she liked it. She thought it was good, but she still felt icky and weird eating it just because, fish is weird to her. But it's something that's probably going to take some time to eventually grow on her. But D3, and then this one is elderberry, which is supposed to help with immune health, plus vitamin C and D, and I think zinc too. So yeah, I know I look like an elderly person taking a bunch of medications for, a list of health issues that have developed over the years. That's what I look like doing this, and that's probably a lot what like vegans look like too. But again, it's not because I'm deficient, it's just because I don't know for certain, because we do get most of our nutrients from plant stuff, and it's really difficult to tell how much of that we're actually absorbing. So I just feel like it can't hurt to make sure and to take these supplements. Yeah, they cost money. Obviously you see all these bottles of pills, so they do cost money, but that's definitely worth it in my opinion, because I'm not going to just start eating way more meat than I want to, and unless my wife wife starts liking fish, that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. But if it does, you know, maybe these supplements, not going to need them. But until then, this is what we do. And this sort of thing is not for everyone. And people that want to eat a lot more meat, you know, even red meats and stuff, like as long as they're healthy, you know, then do what works for you. Just be aware that people that want to deny science and say that LDL does not contribute to plaque that clogs arteries and causes heart disease and all that, they're just denying science, unfortunately, because they would rather take 20 years off of their life than eat a carrot. And that's their choice. But as Josie even said, you know, she emphasized very clearly that this is what works for her, eating more animal-based products. And she doesn't necessarily say that everybody needs to do that. But then there's people, there's influencers like Bella, the steak and butter gal, who swears by it and tries to, and even tries to bring in, you know, the 1 in 100 million doctors that says, oh, LDL isn't bad for you, it's a myth, and then uses that as like an appeal to authority to convince her entire audience that they need to go carnivore, or they should go carnivore, that it's best for their health. But we'll talk in great detail about the steak and butter gal and Bella and a lot of these other carnivore influencers as time goes on. So if you want to hear about all that good stuff, just make sure you subscribe. Till next time.